Well, good evening, everybody. All right, Gil, you're going to have to find a place to sit down. I appreciate y'all coming out this evening. And as I said in the press release, this is an opportunity for you all to talk so I can hear your concerns and what you have to say. So I'm really here to listen tonight, answer questions if I can. I will hit this right off the bat because I know a lot of you are here from Monrovia Town Center. If there's anything that you ask me that I find that would jeopardize the record, I will say that. But I will try to be as open and as transparent as I can about it. But if there's anything that we would find, and I'm actually very appreciative of Brian, is actually filming so that other folks can see that aren't here tonight, and is gladly allowed me to share that. In the event that we were to talk about or you were to give any new evidence, I will need to give that to the county and give it to them. I did talk to council. They have no problem with me talking to you about the Monrovia Center in one form or another. So it'll be one of those issues. It'll be, quite frankly, it'll be a judgment call on my part. The meeting will be reported as an ex parte meeting if we do talk about the Monrovia Town Center, so that we don't run afoul, or that I don't run afoul of that law. So having that been said, if anybody has any questions or concerns, I'm going to open the floor to you. Or if you'd like me to say anything else, just ask me. In general, I mean, it could be anything about the way the government's running.
Yes. I mean, I'm just interested in hearing from you about, from your perspective as someone who represents District 2 and has looked across the district and talked with people across the district. What do you think, what is your sense of people's sentiment about Monrovia Town Center? Because the perception among some of your constituents who have been very intensely involved in that issue is that a lot of people are either against the development or they have issues with how the proceedings were handled. And when they hear that there are a lot of other folks who maybe don't agree, they greet those claims with skepticism. And so I just want to know what your take is.
I don't treat the claims with skepticism. I actually can't speak to the other hearings. A lot of people have, yelled at me, or not really yelled, but have wondered why I didn't go to meetings. For me at the time, it was something I did support. I mean, so I didn't see the need to go there to see meetings. I was familiar with the process and I knew what was going on. What I have seen in talking with folks around the district is a concern for the roads, for the safety and for things like that. And there's no doubt about that. I have met many people, though, I mean, that both ways, that if, absolutely, I mean, you're all here, so I've met many folks from rail and folks that feel that same way, that they absolutely don't want that development, when I have other folks that do want to. I mean, they've actually said, I would like to have a store closer for me to travel to. I would like to see the roads improved. So those are the concerns I'm hearing. So my question is to folks out there is, how do we get Route 75 improved?
Well, I think there are some, I don't want to take up too much of the time here, but I think that there are some broader issues, and some of them may seem more abstract to a lot of people in the county, but one that really concerns me is the potential tax impacts of this development. And it looks to me like, because of the infrastructure requirements and because of the deal that the developer was able to negotiate with the county, that we're going to be on the hook for a lot of infrastructure costs. And to me, that seems like a taxpayer subsidy of private business.
I would just ask this in terms of what you said the developer got, and if you go into what they've agreed to pay, how would the overall community be actually providing that subsidy?
Well, if we have to build out water and sewer, and if we have to...
And if I speak out of turn, I will ask Mr. Stanley to correct me, because they have the facts here.
Fire, additional police, I mean, that all comes at a cost.
Well, the fire and the police do, but when you talk about the water and sewer, if I'm not mistaken, most of that is being borne by the developers coming down there. Lansdale paid for that to get to there, and Mr. Stanley's going to have to pay for that water and sewer to come down there. And certainly, I've had folks, if I jump around a little bit, forgive me, but so I think there's a bigger picture here. I mean, folks have suggested, why not do well in septic? And my experience has been around, over the years is we can sit and look at the original developments that were done, whether they're up off of Windsor Road, Browningville Road, down off of Lindbergh Road in those areas that are all unwell and septic. They took up a whole lot of land and they added a lot of traffic with no benefit to that, and then folks have their septics failing, folks are complaining of their wells going dry. So I personally never saw that as an option. I mean, the state now for several years has been moving to planned urban developments, and they're trying to concentrate growth in preferably places where if the infrastructure isn't there per se, you at least have things like major routes, so you have 70 and 270. And now that's the unfortunate part about this is where we live, right between two major intersecting roads. But I challenge folks to say, where has it ever been where a developer paid for all the expenses? The APFO is written and state law is very clear on this. There's a certain amount of burden you can put on the developer, but their exact words, if I'm not mistaken, can't be unfair to the developer. Now, I don't think the 22 million is any small lump of sum of money and to improve 1 mile of road to fix an interchange. And while we're adding these roads, everybody thinks that this is going to happen today. And one of the things I'm going to do, and I just talked with some folks today, because I think it's important to understand upstream exactly how much traffic is coming down through 75. And if we don't improve it at all and it continues to be ignored, and it seems to be the only way we're getting any funds for this is through public-private partnership. But when you look at the amount of houses, and I was doing a count last night because I went to the Linganore Town Hall that they had because they're talking about what they're trying to do with inside their infrastructure over there. Currently, if you take the Oakdale construction, you take the Casey farm, the Blettlinger farm, and I know I'm forgetting one, the Klein Smith properties, you're looking at close to 6,000 homes. It'll be upstream that you will probably be certain that is going to be coming down 75. There's no doubt about that. And the question is, we can't stop any of that. We couldn't stop it if we wanted to right now. With all those PUDs are done. With the Klein Smith one, which will be 900 and some homes, it's in the town of Newmarket, and the county has no control over it. Those things in Lake Linganore had been on the books for many, many years, and they were just there, and they're just you're utilizing what existed. And my concern is, what if those developers aren't having to give anything up there to the roads down our way? And I see 75 getting a lot more traffic without any improvement. Yes, ma'am.
How much money is budgeted for 75 right now?
Well, currently, there is not money in the budget that I know of, except for that which the public-private partnership that is going to go through, which will fix the road from the top of where, I call it Patriots' store, the liquor store, just on the top of the hill there. The road is to be straight. It'll go to the north side of the bank and connect, and I believe it's going to be 4 lanes for about 3/4 of a mile.
So at this moment, we're considering that all of 75, whatever has to be fixed, is going to come from the taxpayer, whether it be the county taxes or my state taxes. So how do we give reason for this development if there's no money?
It seems it's that, well, it's interesting you say that because someone was mentioning to me earlier that what's happened recently with state funds, and let's face it, we're still coming out of a difficult recession where the state funds, there was not a lot available, and the monies given to roads, municipalities, and counties were severely cut over the last 7 and 8 years, to the point where they went from millions of dollars down to, say, less than $100,000 in some cases. So the state has sorely neglected, by adding benefits to other places and other things that had nothing to do with infrastructure, unfortunately, have been sorely neglected. Now, fortunately, Governor Hogan has decided, you know what, we're not going to fund the Red Line in Baltimore, and we're going to fund less, and they're going to say they're taking, I think it was $220 million out of the Purple Line down in PG County. And he is taking that money and he is targeting it around the state. That is where the money has come from to fix the interchange up on 85, which has been coming here. I do know this, I have been told, whether it's going to happen or not, that the state is just about ready to pull the trigger on the intersection for 75 to 355. And when they do that, Mr. Stanley will be on the hook for a percentage of that funding, which will fix that interchange. But 75 has been a political football since before I ever got involved in politics, since I was probably 15
Why
or
are we
20.
gonna make it worse, cart before the horse? I don't understand.
Let me, if, I'll try to say it another
Just
way.
taking a little bit of money,
Right.
putting it aside, and waiting while these developers just put some in, doesn't give us the load that we need to take care of it. I mean, what
I
about,
wish
what is
the
your,
funding worked that way, where folks would say, okay, we want to improve the road here. So how do which person do I go into the government here, the county government, the state government, I say, okay, I want to start a fund just for 75. I mean, they've got to prioritize it, and Frederick County has to prioritize it first, but the state would look at it. And you've heard talk about priority funding areas, and we're still not in quote-unquote a priority funding area. But if you even look at the priority funding areas, how sorely and how poorly those road systems are. I mean, people want to pack more and more in around Frederick City, and I look at them like, have you tried to get into Frederick City at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon from any direction?
But if we're not even a PFA, then we have less chance than anyone else. We're gonna get a little bit from developers, but it's like, so we're gonna make it worse. The only logic I can see is that if you're waiting for it to be so bad and so many people to get killed that the state has to do it. And that's just not acceptable logic.
Well, and I have talked to the state folks who've done the studies, and the fact is, you want to know the most dangerous part of Route 75? Between 355 and 26. The most dangerous part, the most accidents and most deaths occur from 144 up to 26. Because the highway is so improved, people go faster and you have more, you're more
But it
inclined.
doesn't take
These are
care
just
of
the
the
facts.
problem.
It doesn't take care of the problem.
7,000 more people on the lower part, then it will be in contention and be just as dangerous.
Well, the issue actually has to go with the improved roads, the actual nice and winding roads that allowed. I can go back in time, and maybe you can too, and I remember before the Friends Meeting Schoolhouse was there in Windsor Road, and Windsor School was built, when coming down the hill from the top of 75 there, can't think of the name of the development on the left now, but coming down Windsor Road, you would come down there and be a very sharp turn to the right, and it would be a couple S turns before it got to the other S turns. And I remember growing up, multiple accidents being there. And then eventually, they did, when they put in Windsor Knowles, the school, they fixed the one corner. When the school was built, they had to fix the lanes going there. And then when they put in the Windsor development, the Windsor Knowles development, they had to fix those areas there. And accidents went down considerably. And I personally rolled my car there when I was 16 years old. I mean, I know how the road has changed.
So it's better, but can it handle that many more people still?
Well, one of the other things, when I look at the statistics though, in the times and the use, yes, in the early morning hours, it seems to be the biggest issue where there seems to be a pileup at 75 and 355. That can't be denied. I mean, I go down there, I've been at that intersection at 5, 5:36, all the way up, any time in the morning. Because I don't commute per se. I'm out on that road all the time. And I understand that, but when you travel the road during the day, I mean, can you really honestly say that it's that horrible? I mean, I drive it I've driven it for 40 years. Well, I'm 48, so however long I've had it. So 31 years.
I've been here for 2.5 years and I've seen a big change, especially on Mussetter Road, it's doubled. And now they're planning on putting around Newmarket and bringing traffic down that windy, twisty, narrow road with homes right against the road.
Where right now?
Mussetter Road going around the new interchange, it's supposed to go from 75 down Mussetter.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Between Newmarket and Oakdale.
The bypass.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, correct. Where they're gonna, where,
So the traffic's already doubled, so now what's the figure, especially at the railroad tracks? How far up is traffic? I'm about a quarter mile up. Am I gonna be looking at people all day long? The traffic has doubled since I've been here.
I've got it now, so, right, yes, so, and that is where the town of Newmarket, I just had to think here for a second,
Yeah,
where they annexed the Smith Klein farm.
right.
And I would suspect that yes, that will be an interconnector from 75 all the way around, turns into Mussetter and comes down.
Right, and have you been on that road? You know how it twists and winds and turns and how close the houses are to the street?
I have
I don't know
no-
how that road's gonna go.
And I do not know where that road is in in the matrix. I mean, Imesville Road is currently is being fixed all the way through.
Okay.
To that final leg of that project is being started with the bridge down there at the bottom. So they just finalized that, and it'll be an improved, and it's never gonna be a 4-lane road or anything like that. But Mustetta Road, will they, I do not know the plans for Mustetta Road. If I don't know, I'm gonna
I
tell
can
you.
just tell you for your information that the traffic has doubled, and it's way too much traffic. I never saw it in the middle of the day. I see it in the middle of the day all the time, all day. I'm out in the garden all the time.
And if you'd like, we can actually, I'm sure, I will check to see if there's traffic studies, just to find out more information. And if you would give her your name and contact information, we'll get that back.
And the traffic starts at 4:30.
It does.
Hey, Tony, thank you for coming out, by the way, and I know you're gonna get a lot of uncomfortable questions, and I know a lot of them are gonna be around Monrovia Town Center.
And from you.
And, no, I've never asked any uncomfortable questions before. I've been nothing but nice, right? Always. All right, so let's talk about, I'm a CPA, now retired, but I want to talk about this public-private partnership, because I like to deal with numbers. So the private side of this, for roads going to improve the 75 corridor, you're kicking in 12 million?
25.
25?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that number before.
Yeah. Well, a total of 25.
But just for 75?
You'd be close to 25, yeah.
All right.
All in.
So what's the cost of projection of fixing?
Well, and I don't want to get involved in this, but the state controls that. We don't know what we're going to spend on a road until we get the design approved by the state.
Okay.
It's a state road, and we're not designed it.
Well, they're saying 262 million is the number that was thrown out. in these
That went
hearings.
from the state, because they don't know.
But then Ron Burns went up to $500 million. All right, so that's 10%, okay? So that's the private side of this. Maryland has said, the State Highway Administration, MDOT, whichever one has the ultimate authority, said it's not in a priority funding area. So how are we going to come up, what is your proposal to come up with the other 90% that we're missing here? I mean, the public side.
Well, if I put things in perspective now, from what the developer's gonna be doing on 75 if the Monrovia Town Center does get approved, you're nearly got 1 mile of road, and we're talking approximately about 6.5 or 7 miles of road from Newmarket all the way down. Not counting the bridge, because right now, unless and quite frankly, that is gonna fall on a developer at some point if they ever wanna fix the CSX change. The state's not gonna do it. So for one thing, you know, you're probably not gonna have trucks going through. I mean,
When you say at some point, is that something that's not been already talked about?
I would suspect, I don't think any of it's talked about there, but
Okay.
I just want to put it in perspective. If he's able to do 1 mile of road for $25 million, I have to question where the number's 250 million, and because you're a CPA, I can do 25 times 8, and I can come up with 200 million. And we're not talking about sections of road that would not going to be a 4-lane highway like Mr. Stanley wants to put in there and fix those sections there. It could be, because nobody really knows what the final 75 would look like. I mean, since I've been around, I remember early plans when you came down up from, if you were coming north, the idea was where the bridges were at the bottom over the creek down there, Price's Distillery Road and Price Road. The idea was it was going to take a right and go through the field, and then all those homes that were built, there's 22 homes built there, 75 would be put behind all of those, and it would come and go straight to where the school is.
Right.
So when I look at these things, and folks have said, well, you would have multiple homes being condemned, when I drive down through there, I don't see where folks, there would probably be 1 or 2, maybe a half a dozen homes that would be condemned, but I don't see the 20 or 30 that folks talk about. I mean, there are ways that, and if they do an improved 75 like they do north of Newmarket, but this does fall on the state and how they look at it and how they want to plan it. Because if you've got a volume of traffic up here, you know, as it moves out, the 4 lanes goes to 2 and it flows down, correct? So the idea is the road to be improved, or do we keep it all windy? Is it really going to cost $200 million? I don't have the answer to that. I'm not even going to suggesting I do. But if you have someone that's willing to pay to fix 1 whole mile of that, where the biggest part of that is, should we say no? Because what happens what should we do, though, with the several thousand homes being built north of us?
It's all interrelated, and that gets to a broader discussion.
And it does, but it's all in this district. It's all in District 2.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the problem that I have with this really is, first of all, that's all conjecture about how many houses are going to be taken by eminent domain and all that kind of stuff. But the adjunct to this is, not only did they say in a letter that it's outside of priority funding area, they also said in a separate letter to the county specifically that we are not getting enough money from the developer. I mean, they criticized us for not getting enough money from the developer. Now, the weak link is, and I'd like to get more information on how you said 75 and 355, they're going to start improving that. I know Roy was going to put a stoplight in there. So I'd like to get specific information
I'm just
on
saying
how.
what I was told.
Okay.
I mean, let's
Okay.
say that one's rumor or conjecture,
All right,
but
well,
no one's written me anything and said that's going to
Okay.
happen.
so that, if you think of like broadband width, you know, you can have all this cable width, but when it crunches down, it's almost like a heart artery too. When it crunches down, you know, you get a clogged artery, you're going to have a heart attack. You just keep, the weakest link is going to flood the whole system and back it all up, especially when you add the 6,000 houses. Now, I know it's been argued, all this has been in a growth area and on the map for 40 years. 40 years ago, we didn't have schools at 110, 20% capacity. We didn't have 270 with backups that were ridiculous. When I was coming over here, I listened to WFMD radio. Traffic was dead stopped at Clarksburg. And now, all of these houses, all of this development is going to add to 270. It's going to add to 75. It's going to add to 270, 15. We've been told there's 1 in 4 bridges in the county that are decrepit, for lack of a better word. So there's no way state of Maryland is going to put any money into 75 when they've already committed to 85, 15, and now you got all the bridges and stuff. So I'm telling you, it's just not going to work. You're going to create a total nightmare here with this traffic.
Well, let me ask you this, because you hit on a couple things in terms of, like, say, schools and whatnot.
Right.
So if the county, in its infinite wisdom, were to be able to take away and make sure that it was all age restricted in terms of what's being built there, because the fastest growing population in Frederick County is the elderly.
I understand that.
And what I'm asking is, would the folks in this room that are so dead set against Monterey Town Center, would they support something along these
Well, I've
lines?
had before, and I'll sit down soon. This is what I think. If you have an all-age restricted community with still 1,200 plus units, you're still going to add people to the road, and they're going to be older people. Coupled with all of the development north, you still have to get a commitment from the state before you're going to go through with this stuff. All right? There's just no other way around. It's being, in my opinion, so far you've kind of been penny-wise and pound-foolish. Penny-wise, I appreciate the stuff you did looking into the budget and the knick-knack things and all that kind of stuff. We're trying to save money in the county. Big picture, though, this is putting us all on the hook for a tremendous amount of money, just like the incinerator was, but that's a whole other issue. Thank God they killed that, because that would have bankrupted the county. So we can't be penny-wise and pound-foolish. And I just have to be honest with you, and I know this is a sore subject, but with all the developer money that floated around to the previous board members on the BOCC and now to you, I just see a tremendous conflict of interest, and I don't think people are settling down and looking at the big picture and saying, you know what, this really isn't a good idea, and that's why they took the zoning away in 2010. That was the prudent thing to do, in my opinion. So I guess I'll yield the floor now to anybody else. So, but.
That brought up the one question at the meeting where you all decided to postpone the decision, and I thought you were very sincere and eloquent, and although I didn't agree with you, I really appreciate your honesty. But Ms. Fitzwater started to ask a question and then kind of let it die, and that question was, it started out as a 55-member community, and anybody here who's going to say that we don't know that our area is prime for development is blind. But we want smart development. We don't want haphazard. And she started to ask, why can't we go back to thinking about 55 and older? So my question is, why can't we go back to 55 and older? Because that kind of got no, that we can't do that.
At the expense of being brutally honest, when you've talked with someone.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Could you just, if maybe it's just me, could you just speak
Here,
a
here.
little louder?
Yeah.
Is it just me, maybe?
Can I help if I use this?
Yeah.
It may be on. You may have to. They're Speak louder.
Okay, thank you.
If you follow along with it, when that vote occurred, and MC Keegan-Ayers made the motion for what she did to review the record, to make a decision on September 1. And that's where the council is right now. When she did that, my only point at that, and this is pure business when it came to that point, I want folks to make their decisions on the record at hand by what the county staff had done and prepared. And unfortunately, that would not be a part of that record. So when Ms. Fitzwater asked me that question, my point to her was very clear, that if you're going to decide it on the record, and you've shot down and you did not want to enter into discussion up to this point, why are you bringing it up now? Now, to that point, I said to her, it's off the table. It was on the table, but now you've said that you didn't want to do that, you didn't want to support the motion and allow that discussion to move forward. She pulled it out, so she kind of tied my hands. Does it say that I'm not in support of what you like? I have said it publicly, I have met with Roy privately and told him that I would like to see it all age restricted. It is something I want, so if you have to understand that if you're sitting up there and you're making that decision, I'm not going to lie to you, that's a political decision, because I also know the ideologies of the people that I have to work with. I respect them for that. But if you're going to have that discussion, then let's have it honestly, and we should have had that discussion that night.
So we're not allowed to have that, because just now you
We-
started
we-
to ask
we-
anybody else to.
I hope that that discussion can occur, yes. But right now, I think it's incumbent upon those members, myself included, that weren't fully familiar with the record, review that record. Staff has given us complete copies of all the information. We have them on a CD for review, and I do know that council members are reviewing them. Matter of fact, Jerry Donald has asked me questions, and we're actually going to be touring the area this coming week because he wants to see the entire area. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you said you want to hear our comments or concerns. So I'm offended, one, because you just said that you've spoken with him privately, yet I have sent you emails, yet we have asked you repeatedly to have town halls before the first hearing of the letter, the Smith letter incident, and you never responded. Couldn't even give a courtesy when I asked you the last time. Give me a courtesy to say that you got this email. And yet, Mr. Stanley's here at our District 2. This is District 2. He doesn't live here. And here you are telling us again that you've met with him privately and talked to him. What about us? When were you going to talk to us? The only time that you talk to us is when it seems that the pressure's come on. Now you have to. It wasn't skirted under the rug like you wanted it to. Now you have to talk to us. I don't understand what's going on. Why
Well, I never skirted it under the rug, but when Mr. Stanley has asked me to talk with him, I met with him, and I have encouraged folks, and like I said, I have apologized for the several people, and quite frankly, it was only, 2 or 3 that I did not respond to. And I take full responsibility for that, and I apologize for that, and I should have done that. In terms of when was the proper time to have a town meeting, that is, I can sit here and give you 100 excuses, I won't do that. It just would not work through the year for me personally, in order to find that time. I mean, I could sit here and go through it, I could sit here and tell you that the county council job, as much as folks would like it to be a part-time job, it's not, and it's increasingly becoming more and more so, and I'm not complaining. And when someone made a comment to me I made a comment about correcting the record, I wanted to correct the record because people had misinformation concerning council pay. If you paid me nothing, I'd still be running here today. I still would be here. I still would have tried to run for county council. That had nothing to do with it. But as a part-time position, though, I still have to balance a large family, the companies I run.
You met with Stanley. You had time for Stanley, so I'd like to.
I don't think 5 minutes is like, and literally, and that's all it was. I say met, it was a phone call. It wasn't even a meeting. It was a phone call. So, and I even tell folks, if you want to get me, the better thing to do is I will give you my phone number, my cell number. Call me. I will talk to you. A lot of folks don't like that, but I will absolutely talk to you. It's much easier for me to talk to you and have a conversation, because I think it's too easy to get lost sometimes in the weeds of some of the questions asked. I could spend 2, 3, 4 pages answering back. I'd rather have that conversation so that we understand where we're both coming from.
Well, it would have been nice for you to do
I
that.
I apologize, and in the future, it will not happen.